All right, Dr. Trent Mozingo, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, before we get into just all the cool stuff that basically your history with biochemistry, research driven, and understanding not only hormones and the organ functions and how that plays a role with weight management. I definitely want you to share some of your story because I was reading a little bit about growing up as a farmer, and man, with all the stuff with food these days, that fascinates me. So you got to fill us in.
All right, well, that's a good place to start for sure. Luckily, I was blessed, I guess is the best way of putting it, growing up with local raised food. Grew up with a garden, grew up raising beef and eggs and chickens and pork. We had it all just at our fingertips. And more importantly, we learned that I didn't even have to learn how much it affected my health growing up because I've always been healthy and I've always had that blessing just because of the foundation, the nutrition I had as a child. I didn't really realize how much food mattered until I was in undergraduate college. That's when I went to Purdue and, I was poor. So you ate ramen noodles. That's the way it was.
Yep,
And
college student, man.
sodium levels were high, swelling, I mean, I never had blood pressure problems, but there was definitely some negative, feeling energy wise, sleep wise. It was all just different. And it never even clicked to me then until even when I went to chiropractic school. And then I really started getting that foundation of growing up, working on equipment, understanding what was wrong with cows when they were sick, or why a horse had trouble delivering a baby, or even why the tractor's engine wasn't running right. So this is a part of what growing up on my farm was about. My two older brothers and we were kind of given that responsibility, that freedom from our parents, which were pretty laissez-faire, if you will. They let us just take hold and do things. So we started to just dissect how a wood splitter works, and we understood hydraulics, and we started to understand how a bulldozer worked and skid steers, and we had all kinds of equipment. So we had to learn a pretty diverse spectrum of things that are, functioning to make our farm go, but we weren't a rich farm. So we had to work on that stuff on our own. So we usually applied that ability to diagnose things by understanding what makes them work or how they work. And I learned in the chiropractic school that that's a huge factor in any physician, doctor. You first got to understand how the human body works. And it applies across the board from, heating and air techs and mechanics to engineers and veterinarians, everyone. We first have to understand what product we're working on before we can even try to figure out a plausible plan to fix it.
Yeah.
So then it started to generate in my head, and when I started learning biochemistry in chiropractic school, because it turned out I was doing pretty poor in the class, so I had to really buckle down and study. And I bought the books. I never bought the books. I'm an auditory learner, and I didn't need one before then. And I started digging deep into biochem, and then I started realizing, like, okay, I'm literally figuring out how the human body works now. I have no idea how to fix a problem. I'm not even interested in learning that at this point. I was learning just how it works.
Yeah.
And then that moved forward to then me figuring out, okay, something's gone really wrong here biochemistry wise in our country, because I could start to link it to, okay, someone's got adrenal fatigue or a hormone imbalance or low thyroid function, liver fatigue, liver toxicity. And I started linking that to, well, there's a serious cause and change. And that's when it really started clicking to me that I've left the farm for 10 years now. I'm not eating the same way that I was before. My health is also being negatively affected, the same as everybody else's is. So that led me to really dig deep in what has changed systematically as a culture to proliferate this epidemic that we have going on of, what are we at, 72% overweight rate, something like that?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
Yeah, it's crazy. So through the research of the book, research of, I run an office here in Columbus, Indiana. I'm a chiropractor by trade, do a lot of functional nutrition in the office as well. I see it every single day. People struggling to figure out what it takes to go from their current health status to where they, dream to be. And that's been a 7-year build for me to figure out a system that just works, makes sense, and it's sound. It's not, Anything fake, this is what you have to do if you really want to change from your current health status to a better one.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think there's plenty of people these days, they're aware that they're a part of that statistic, that 72%, and they want to make a change, but it's also become so normal at this part that it's almost more difficult to be abnormal and to be fit and to be healthy. And then I think we just get stuck with the bombardment of information and stuff, because so many people don't have, you know, that background of understanding first how things work before they try and fix it. And it seems like you're right. Like we're trying to, you know, fad diet, detox, cleanse, throw all these quick fix stick things that obviously aren't going to work because they're not playing with any of the functions within the body. So yeah, like I'd love to have you elaborate kind of on what the methodology is that's helping people just get their gut functioning well again, and hormones in check and stuff so that they can control weight management.
Sure. It's one of the revelations in the book that makes the most sense to me is what's happened culture-wise first is, you know, our human body is designed to run on a style of eating, and every bit of the hormone function inside of the body links back to hunter and gatherer or feast and famine, or new term is intermittent fasting.
Sure.
This is a style that the human body is designed to eat on. This plays into insulin, this plays into cortisol, this plays into ghrelin function, all these different hormones that are for satiety and hunger. Intermittent fasting makes the most sense in all the research that I've found. And then intermittent fasting has become kind of a, you know, just do it this way or just do it that way. It's a diet style, but more or less it's we eat too often and we eat too much.
It's a tool. It's a, you know, controlled tool is the way I like to teach it. Yeah.
So the problem we have is food is delicious now because it's full of junk.
Yep.
And it's readily available.
Yeah.
So first step for me is prepare your pantry in my office. Like if you have bad food in your house, it's never going to work.
Yeah.
You can't have that easily obtainable junk food.
Yeah.
If you do,
environment dictates behavior every time.
For sure. You're going to fail. Everyone will. I would. And I eat pretty clean 90% of the time. But if there's a Reese cup around, it's really hard, you know?
I'm with it. Ice cream.
Yeah. You know it's delicious. Your brain has already, you know, built that little bit of an addiction to that exciting flavor. So, yeah, first step for me is we got to get back to the basics. Is first cut out the stuff that doesn't have a single ingredient. That's number one. And we're not designed to eat anything that's got more than one ingredient for the most part. It's just not real food.
Yeah.
So that's another big concept.
And I like that you're saying ingredient. You're not actually going further, because I mean, we could break down, you know, the chemicals of what is in anything, and there's going to be a ton of names we don't know. A banana has a ton of like chemical names, right? But you're saying ingredient, so like you're making it specific. So I do appreciate that awareness. Yeah.
It's a banana for the most part. You know,
right.
I don't like that they're bleached or, you know, some of them are chemically aged, but eating a banana that's chemically aged is a little bit better than eating a ho-ho, right?
Right.
Or
right.
a ding-dong, right?
Yeah.
And another concept that I give, it encourages people a lot to say, you're never going to be perfect. No one can. But every single thing that you stick in your mouth does affect your entire metabolic function,
sure,
whether it's good or bad. So everything that you eat healthy is going to be a positive shift. Everything that you don't is going to be a negative shift. And the way I really design my system is you're on a sliding rule, 0 to 100. I'm left-handed, so numbers works for me really well. But so come in, you take my quiz, my health questionnaire, and it's based on symptoms alone, and I can explain that more later. And it gives you a point. All right, you're 60%. You don't have to be there forever. You can get better, or you can get worse. Good choices make you better. Bad choices make you worse. So that gives people this understanding that they are taking control of their situation. They know after they leave my office, a couple visits, that every bad decision they make is their responsibility. And every good decision they make is their responsibility. I'm not doing anything but just facilitating the process.
You know, it's interesting, right? Because it's like, it's kind of preached these days. And I definitely believe, like, you know, reach with an empathetic hand and be able to show from a gentle place to be able to then nurture and foster that, to like forgive themselves for that. And they don't have to be from perfect. But at the same time, like, you're spot on in the sense that you have to show people exactly where they're at and give them the dose of truth. And if they want it and they're accepting of the truth, because it is reality, right? Like, men lie, women lie, results don't lie. And you're saying, here's where you're at. Like, and this is a fact of where you're going. And so it's much more of a, not black and white, because it's not like you're giving the options, you're painting the path of, possibility. But, I appreciate it, even though it can probably be like a really hard pill for people to swallow.
Hardest thing to tell someone is, if you eat one poor meal, that literally changes your health spectrum for the rest of your life. That's a scary, crazy thing to, even for myself, because I've had some bad ones in my day, right? I've had bad days, bad weeks. Everything, it changes so much inside of your body. From, if you distort one cell replication, it's going to proliferate for the rest of your life, right? You're never going to be at one set point forever. You're never doomed to be here, but you can help make your body healthier long term if you just start making better choices. More good ones than bad is the best way for me to explain it to people. Just more good choices than bad, because there's a lot of people that just, and a lot of my patients, they're just on this really bad snowball effect, and it's a really tough thing to overcome.
Yeah. So you're not creating fear. You're just pointing out the realities and trying to expose a better path, to get the ball on the better side of the court.
Yeah, I'm wildly optimistic. I try to be with everyone, because I explain to them every day, like, there's weekends I go out and I eat a hot dog on a campfire. I'll do it. But I know that I can't eat a hot dog on a campfire every single day.
Right.
That you got to be normal. You got to have that social. There is a social aspect to going out to restaurants. There's a social aspect to sitting around a campfire eating a s'more. That part of that psychology is also, it's beneficial to some degree, because you don't feel like you're trapping yourself into a closet saying, I can't be around anything that's unhealthy, because that's also going to be pretty unhealthy on a psychological level.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really, knowing that restaurants, knowing that social environments and interactions are going to be so critical. I mean, there's some fascinating studies just showing the more social creatures that we are, the longer that we can live. So that plays such a huge role into health. But you're saying you don't have to, eat all of it when you're there. It's getting the right amount so that you're getting more of the good, less of the bad. And in your words, like, is what you're going for.
Yeah, just it's that happy medium. You understand that you can do the little bad things. The body can handle it. The body can detox it. The body is a really amazing machine. The body is doing everything it can to thrive. Even if you throw a little bit of a curveball at it, it's going to correct it. It's going to correct itself and keep going. But there is that happy medium of saying, I can also be, I don't want to use the term normal, but I can go hang out with my friends and not be that person that says, no, I can't go to your barbecue because I might eat a cheeseburger.
Yeah.
There's that very complex medium that people have to start to understand. And a lot of my process is educating them in every single way the metabolic body works. So then they start to understand every symptom they feel, what they possibly could have done to create it. So now they're taking all the control for their health instead of just waiting on someone to fix a problem with some other gimmick.
Yeah, and I think that last, waiting for a gimmick, waiting for something else, waiting for a quick fix is absolutely huge. And you mentioned earlier, the body is designed to handle this. It's designed to, and you even said detox this. And I think that's why people buy into detoxes and cleanse, and we're going, no, like, that's what your body's designed to do. It's just that if there's too much of something, it can't. I kind of use like the filter in a pool, right? Our body's mostly water, kind of like a pool, and your liver is one of the filter features of the body, kind of like the little filter in a pool. And man, if one kid pees in the pool, not a big deal. It'll take care of it. But if you got too much in there, you're running into some issues. So I definitely want you to expand on that whole, like, kind of how the body, metabolizes and whatnot and all of that. Cause I think the hormone function is fascinating.
It is. So what I explain, I did a lot of ongoing education seminars after my postgraduate days. Even, chiropractic is a relatively holistic career path, and we get a pretty substantial amount of nutritional education, but it's still not functional nutrition education. It's not functionality biochemistry education. we learn enough to, get past the boards and have a foundation.
Sure.
You really got to dig deeper after that, even as a chiropractor or any other position, to get that full detail of how food really does interact inside the body. But so more importantly, when I started looking at all these seminars, and I was amazed by, so many of the, we're going to call them functional medicine docs that put on seminars. They say, we never want to treat weight loss. We don't want to do weight loss. That's not our niche. I look at them kind of funny, but okay. And then they go on, I was like, what we're going to treat is digestion. Okay. So I learned more. And then they talk about how nutrition affects your digestive function. Sure. Absolutely. So then I dug in deeper. And then I went to the next seminar about hormone balance things. And they say, we don't want to treat weight loss. We just want to treat hormone balancing. I'm like, okay. And then I'd move forward, and I went to a fibromyalgia clinic, and nope, no weight loss, just fibromyalgia. Then I start piecing these things together. I was like, you guys are missing the big point here. The same thing that creates a weight issue is the same thing that creates digestive dysfunction, the same thing that creates the hormone imbalance. They're all the same thing. It's poor nutrition. It's poor environmental influences, if you will. Someone that works third shift, they're always going to struggle.
Yeah, it's true.
The body's not made to be awake all night. It's cortisol and melatonin work together to make you sleep when it's dark. Like, that's just normal. But so then I started to say, you guys are missing a big point in all these clinics. So I had to start designing my own thought process from it. And I started linking it together more, which is why I had to write a book to lay out the exact sequence of what happens. So weight loss is not the first thing that happens. It's digestive distress, right? You're right. Poor gut, poor stomach function, more importantly.
Oh man, there's just the amount of people that have gallbladder issues and leaky gut. And I'm going, I'm not a doctor, right? That's why I have doctors come on my show, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're one of them. And I'm just going, man, red flag over here. Like, it's not going to a traditional medical doctor. I mean, yes, there are times, there are places, they are needed, they are wonderful, they are a gift. But could it be what you're putting in your gullet that could actually help this, Yeah.
So 100%. Low stomach acid is one of the biggest problems we have in our country. Not high stomach acid. Acid reflux is not from high stomach acid. It's from low stomach acid. It's because the human body is made to digest proteins, fats, carbohydrates, right?
Yep.
In the form of fruit, vegetable, nut, animal product, and that's about it. When you put something that's got 17 chemical ingredients into your mouth and chew it, the body doesn't know what that is. When it gets to the stomach, it doesn't know how to break down chemicals. It knows how to break down proteins and carbohydrates. The stomach can't really break down fats. That's what our gallbladder's for, right? So once you mess up that stomach function, you lower the stomach acid. You can't break down the actual good food that you eat. And then undigested food gets in the small intestine, wrecks your gallbladder, wrecks your pancreas function, and wrecks your small intestine function. This is the problem. So then poor bacteria starts to grow in the small intestine, and that goes down the track to the gut.
Yep.
And gut, in my research, is more of an immune response, more of a gut and brain connection.
Yeah.
Where the small intestine, the prebiotics, is the most important factor in nutrition assimilation. So the small intestine is actually where, when we eat food, it gets to your bloodstream, right? That's the one that happens. Water is basically what comes out of the large intestine. But every bit of the intestinal blood flow goes straight to the liver from the portal vein. So that's the second thing that gets affected. Your liver becomes exhausted. It becomes overworked. It gets just a bunch of junk food, and it's just working its butt off. So liver really controls your thyroid function. It controls your cortisol response. It controls your a part of your stress response. So once you do that, then your thyroid function comes down, and then your metabolic rate comes down. And at that point, becoming overweight is almost impossible, or almost inevitable, because if your resting metabolic rate drops, you're just burning less calories at rest, and 80 to 90% of your total calories burned during the day are burned just from your resting metabolic rate. Your exercise really doesn't mean much if your overall metabolic rates are decreased. So there's a lot of things that we talk about in the book about how, that's about as simple as I can put it. Digestive distress causes liver distress, causes low thyroid function, causes poor stress response causes weight gain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
overriding that, it starts with the eating right foods, but there's other factors for thyroid function that makes a big difference. Halogens, if you're familiar with them, chlorine found in our bread, found in our drinking water, found everywhere for all of our cleaners, Cloroxes. Chlorine blocks the functionality of iodine, which is what your thyroid uses.
Hmm.
Fluoride blocks iodine function. Bromide, which is found in used to be found in bread. They made them take that out, but now it's in Mountain Dew has a brominated vegetable oil in it, blocks your thyroid function.
Yeah.
Teflon on your skillets, that's fluoride, blocks thyroid function. So environmentally, there's a lot of weight against us, pun intended, but there's a lot of things that are creating havoc for the poor thyroid gland that really needs a lot of addressing. And you tell someone not to use Clorox bleach anymore, they look at me like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
There's natural cleaners out there, there really is. And that's part of that, not just what you eat, but everything else you ingest and breathe and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. My last guest, she just said, diet is literally everything in your environment as well as like your thought process. Like
I
that
heard
is a
that.
part of that.
That was a
And
great line. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing though, right? Like, spot on and super helpful on everything. And, we're not saying it's not about calories in, calories out. You're saying how it affects within the system, and then it's going to lower your metabolic rate. So obviously then if you're still eating at 2000 calories, what used to sustain you, and knowing that NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is what's going to be the majority of where stuff is coming out. Now it might only be 1800 or 1600. Then we're just going to gain, even though we're not eating more. But with all of that, right? Like, and all of these things, it'd be so easy right now to just be like, I gotta cut everything out. I can't cook with this. I can't use my toothpaste anymore. And wait, we're supposed to be talking about food, right? So it's so easy for us to get overwhelmed, lost, and confused. And so, first is like, where do we start? Like if someone is listening right now and they're going, I know I need to make a change, but I need to make a simple change. What's the first thing that you would say they focus on cutting out, and the first thing that they focus on increasing or adding or making a consistent routine?
That's a good question. What my system does is I basically have a 100-day program that I have people run through because it's something with structure.
Sure.
And for me, the first 10 days is a gut check. I call it a cleanse because they don't eat anything but fruits and vegetables. Raw. As raw as you can eat them, 10 servings a day. And they think I'm crazy. They do. Just how can I not eat meat? And I explain to them, like, your body doesn't really need that much protein. So this is the process. It's just that gut check is, show me you can do this for 10 days. And they do. They make a very noble effort. And then the second phase, they go into, all right, we're going to add some chicken, some fish, and some protein. Just easy digestive stuff. Beef's a little tougher for the gallbladder to break down. A little bit, heavier protein, heavier fat. So I minimize that for the first 70 days. And they do eat that. And then they do really well. And the funny thing happens week or day 30 on my 100-day program, almost everybody, they want pizza. And they get pizza. And they feel awful the next day.
It's amazing how you feel when you cut a bunch of stuff out.
Yeah, 30 days. And then I explained to them, like, how did that feel? It made my human body feel awful. And then I explained, that's how important nutrition is for you. And that's the best way to start that process. I don't talk about cleaners. I don't talk about, throw your pans away. That's too far. You're going to overwhelm the vast majority. So for me, it starts with nutrition because that's the easiest thing for someone to change, even though it seems difficult, but it's a lot easier than going buying new pots and pans.
Sure. Especially when the main issue is eating out at restaurants all the time or grabbing fast food. It's, we got to get you comfortable again, cooking in the kitchen and making those habits again before we even worry about changing the pots and pans.
The restaurant's a huge thing too. And you're right. There's not even hardly a healthy salad in a restaurant anymore. Like, there's really just not any healthy choices. If you're going to do it, it's really tough to eat a healthy meal at any restaurant. So home cooked foods, I talk about that in my book a lot, is, find a hobby, but also plan some meals just around the house. Just become intimate with preparing the food, because then you're going to start to understand that you're nourishing your own human body a little bit deeper
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, I mean, obviously, like the program, I get where you're coming from. It's almost a combination of, in one tiny retrospect, Whole 30, in the sense that you're starting from there, but also an elimination diet or FODMAP almost
Hmm.
style,
Hmm.
which is very, very common within the registered dietitian world to treat and figure things out.
Hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense. And then a little bit of like paleo-ish, I would say,
Hmm.
where it's hitting the roots. And so I think those are all key things. I like to say for most of my clients, it is paleo-ish, in the sense that I'm not going to freak out over certain things by
Sure.
any means. And when you look at the bulk of almost every diet out there, there's still an emphasis on get your fruits and vegetables, like more than anything, get lean, quality proteins. And then it's like, it's either high fat, low carb, like there's play
Yeah.
within that.
Yeah.
Um,
The only thing I tell people is don't ever try to see how much bad stuff you can fit into a diet, right? That's a lot of these crazy diets are like, if I count my calories and I can fit in a Snickers, like, no, it doesn't make any sense. It's not, you're not changing anything. You're just minimizing the bad, but you're still taking in justifiably, and it's just not going to work. Um,
what if though they're more of a moderator, and that's the one thing that's keeping them on track with it long enough until they can remove that from their diet?
the problem is most of those, I mean, I'm going to single out any diet plan because there's a lot of them out there, and there's a lot of them that uses points and uses this and that.
Sure.
The problem is I like to educate on stop thinking so hard and stop trying to think so hard about it. Eat when you're hungry and eat whole foods. It is a very simple concept. It's if it has more than one ingredient, you're not allowed to have it. If you do have it, you understand what negative effect you're making. And that's what people need to take home is they need to know that even it says 0 sugar, 0 calories, 0 everything on a soda, it's bad. Like, that education needs to come about because the chemicals in it are disrupting the digestive tract. So that's a hard thing for me to let slide for the most part is I want them to be able to have it, but they need to not say I'm having it justifiably. I'm eating it and I know what I'm doing wrong is what I like for people to understand.
Yeah. No, that education piece is critical. And so then the harder thing for me to kind of wrap my head around is like, so then how do you keep, because that psychology and that behavioral piece tied to food is very powerful. And a lot of times, I mean, most of our stress foods, 80% of people who stress eat, it's tied to foods that they actually ate when they were a kid. Either it was given to them to alleviate stress, to, keep them busy or whatever. So it's taking them psychologically back to a safer time when they didn't have stress. So like,
Mm-hmm.
that is deeply ingrained. And so how do you, minimize that, right? If you're saying can't have this, here's what it's going to do. It's wrong. You're making this choice. It's so easy to go, if I have this, I'm bad. And just to internalize that, and then just to have this moral, compass, and then to feel worse. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
minimize that?
I don't know if I can.
Hmm.
That's hard. That's a tough subject. And I would say 60 to 70% of my patients really do a lot of major changes. And there's 20% that make zero. And I have to understand that and say, this system might not work for you, but you're going in a direction and you're not slowing down. And I hate that for people. I have a tough time getting away from that left brain analytical, this is scientific. It's really hard for me to break away from that. So I do struggle with that scenario, but I think hopefully they still leave with some positive education behind. I know it, and maybe in 6 months they'll have that. They'll hit that wall and they'll say, "All right, this is time to make that major change."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes back to like knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so that education is one of the most critical piece. And, if someone is struggling with, food addiction or whatever it is, I mean, when we look at someone who's getting sober from, alcohol, it typically is the seventh time. And so I believe I don't know if there's any studies out there. I honestly do not know. So I'm just, guessing, but I'm pretty sure that there's probably a correlation between that with food and just acquiring the knowledge and starting and stopping. And it's like, it may take the seventh time, and whether they picked it up from you on the first, the third, or it was that seventh time, then they'll be able to use that education, because without the education, they won't be able to make a change regardless. So,
Yeah.
so the science and the research is beyond needed for sure.
Yeah. And that's the hardest thing, is for people to really learn, because there's so much out there, so much info out there that is total jargon, in my opinion. There's so many pills out there and miracles that it's hard to get people to wrap their head back around, like, those miracles are not the answer for you. I can assure you of that. Scientifically, I can show you how some miracle green bean tea or whatever is not going to change your life forever.
Yeah.
You got to cut the head off the snake, if you will, if that's still a saying these days. Like, you can't just keep kicking the can down the road, is another one. But yeah,
No, yeah. And I always like to tell people, like, yeah, if you really think it's a supplement or a pill or something like that that's going to solve the situation, don't you think we all would have known about it by now? Like, it's pretty obvious. So, so I do want to know, it's like people go to their doctors still, and I think that's a challenging thing. And it's something you kind of address in your book. It's like, where are we still seeking out information from our doctors? And again, it's just not their place for the most part. There are some, right? But it's not their place when it comes to nutrition and weight loss, because it hasn't been their focus within their schooling and study. Not their fault by any means. They're only given, a few minutes. And I understand that whole system. So this is not an attack on anyone in that world. But I think we're confused on where do you go for information and answers these days when you've got, old Dr. Google, which has 4 million charlatans selling, like you said, green bean tea, which I don't know if that's really a thing. But, Dr. Mozingo and I have our new green bean tea that's only available right now. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it's like, where do people go? Like, for stuff.
Gosh, hard to say. I mean, there's a nice push to functional nutrition and functional medicine, and most of them are doing a pretty holistic approach to just cut away from isolating weight loss out on its own entity. I think that's a big problem that we have. You can't isolate weight loss alone. You have to take weight loss and say, all right, your weight is a reflection of your digestive health, your reflection of your thyroid function, and a reflection of your detoxing ability. We got to address those things too. So any approach like that, I think, is going to be in the right track. I'm actually working to build a network of doctors that understand my mentality, my thought process. Hopefully that will go live in the next 6 months or a year. Cool. Just colleagues and things from school and through my ongoing education protocols things. So it's growing. Thank goodness. The functional medicine world is growing.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And as research continues to come out and people become, more, they want to be more research driven, and they're realizing that studies, I think more than ever, like we're all just like taking everything with a grain of salt and going like, show me the research and let's see if like this study actually holds up and how many participants and how's it being read. So we're all on this like question type standpoint, which I think is good. It makes it hard right now, but I think it'll be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I think it's encouraging. I see patients every day that say, look, man, I don't want just another pill. And I think that's a positive change, in my opinion, from what I remember 10 years ago. Like, that's people were seeking them, and now they're understanding, like, okay, I need something different to really make a change for my health status. I think that's a positive change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people are even almost fearful of pills. And it's like, like I was even talking with the client just recently, and, he was told by his doctor to go on statins, and pulls out all this research because he's willing to do and dig on his own. And I think that's where people are. And he's going, yeah, statins only are effective for 17% of the people, but then here's all of the negatives that could be. And it could be that that he should be on it because he's part of that 17%. But when you're looking at the rest, you're going, whoa, red flag. Maybe this isn't right for me, right? let me see what else I can do too, or in addition to, or, you just want to question everything these days.
And in my opinion, I think if an MD or any doc would be offended by that conversation, I would probably look for a new doc, is how I would approach things, because they get into this headstrong mentality that don't question their authority. And really, there's a lot of information out there to be sought after to really understand how a statin actually works, what it actually does inside of your human body. And it's pretty astounding, really, what what it does your libido, what it does your energy levels. And there's a lot of stuff out there to be, for a male, that would worry me some.
Yeah.
And that doctor needs to have that conversation. And there's a lot of them that get offended by those conversations for sure.
I'm so happy you brought that up because, my favorite answer when most people ask me anything fitness, nutrition related, or, even behavioral psych is it depends, because it's always going to depend. And my biggest thing is like, there's a red flag if you've got someone who's speaking in absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
If it's eliminating this 100% every time for every situation. And I'm like, there may be a situation for that. If you're speaking 100% absolutes, then it means that you're closed off to what potential information and research. And that's why going back to like your main focus being research, could come to light. It's if you say, this is what we know now, this is the best of my abilities now,
Sure.
based on what's out, then I'm all for it. But man, that absolute closed-minded. So I appreciate you for saying that.
I can still remember coming out of college, I thought 5 small meals a day was the best diet plan ever. There's no way it doesn't make sense. It keeps your digestive system working, which raises your burning calories. And then the more research I started doing just on the one hormone ghrelin, it's like, no, that can't make sense anymore. So yeah, I'm always adapting. I was writing blogs about how 5 square meals a day, you got to do it this way. And you have to be
funny
willing.
10 years ago, I was like, 4 at minimum, but 5 to 6 is ideal.
Yeah. And it just changes, and you got to be willing to adapt to that, I think. And as research, like I said, as more understanding comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to be able to say, we were wrong. Let's adapt and let's go on. So,
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So one question that I had is like, we know that our food supply, I mean, you grew up on a farm where you could control pretty much to a degree everything. It depends on where you're buying your livestock from originally and stuff. I'm sure there were still things out of your control, but these days, if we're getting most of our food from the regular grocery store that might just work for most people, they may not have, certain organic, stores and stuff and options, but some of the stuff is just showing like the quality of that food, the amount of minerals, nutrients and vitamins within some of that food is a fraction of what it was. In some cases, tomatoes that are 70% less of what they used to have, and treated with coloring and all this stuff. And so it's like, one, what do we do with that? So what do we try and seek out? Is it better to go the organic route? Is it not, like for ourselves and choosing the right foods? And then 2, kind of where's your stance on vitamins, and to go about that route to fill this gap to the best of our abilities if needed?
Okay. That's good. Shop local is the best, right? That's what everybody should want to do. I don't know where you're from. I'm from Indiana. There's a lot of farmers markets. Pretty much it's a farming community for the most part around me, but great place. Look for a farmers market. And I think most even metropolitan areas are going to have them growing, because it's an idea. It's really a shift in our nutrition. So as local as you can is a good way of looking at it. And, you see all these things on the internet, how a banana with brown spots has been chemically aged, and a banana with dark lines of brown is better. I don't know about that stuff. I don't know. I think you go nuts trying to figure that out at a grocery store. And organic's going to be better because they have to meet that criteria.
Yeah.
I think, and it's not going to be better as an organic, thought process of the chemicals and all that stuff. It's just raised a little better. And the better you raise the food, the healthier the food, the happier the food is. And it's going to in game help you too.
Sure.
Vitamins wise, there's not a synthetic vitamin out there that makes any sense to me. Didn't make any sense.
Really?
By definition, vitamins come from food. They have to be derived from a food source to really work. Now, there's ways to extract phytonutrients from foods. There's ways that good vitamin companies, I won't use any names, but there's good ones out there that extract real, basically hold down organic, the nature of the food and keep it in. When you try to, supersede nature, you're always going to disrupt the internal system. So a synthetic like B complex that turns your urine neon yellow,
right,
it's not going to do a lot of good for you.
Yeah.
But if you can find like a whole food-based supplementation, or one that's really extracting from food, you're going to be much better off than one that's just generating them from a petroleum-based product.
So more like a greens powder, like an Amazing Grass or Organifi or any one of those companies?
Yeah. Or herbs, right? Herbs are another way to really supercharge the body with what it needs to help. Now, herbs, in my opinion, are pretty anecdotal. Like you take them when you need to do something. You
Hmm.
don't take an herb long term for the most part. It's more acting like a medication. Supplement wise, greens and whole foods like that is, in my opinion, a more ideal approach to give you a multi-complex or something like that, or omega-3 oil, or a B complex. But it needs to be as derived from an organic state as it can be.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very helpful. So before I ask my last question, definitely want to talk about the book, and so feel free to share insights on that, and then where they can find the book. I know it's on Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and then where people can find more information about you and follow you.
Great. Well, I got a website called newstartsolution.com. That's basically the program. And on the newstartsolution.com, you can fill out a free health questionnaire. And it's based on symptoms alone. That's how I derive everything in my office, symptoms driven. So a symptom is the expression of dysfunction. A dysfunction is the expression of a deficiency, is how I play out the whole system here. So they can fill out a quiz, but newstartsolution.com is some information on me. The book is called The Wait Is Over. The links between food, health, and weight that your doctor hasn't told you. And it really dives deep into the mentality of a holistic thinker and a reductionist thinker. And it lets you understand how my brain worked to come up with this whole system, whole idea behind the progressive decline disorder. And that's what I call our health epidemic on this sliding scale I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's basically you're progressively getting worse if you eat or live that poor diet. You're progressively getting better if you change and make the positive improvements. But the book's, it's kind of lengthy. I'm kind of a long-winded fellow, it turns out. But it starts out with the nuts and bolts of what happened in our food system, how we went from that hunter and gatherer to where we're at now. And then it goes into what happens when you eat the foods wrong in that very systematic order that I talked about. And it goes in depth with all the cortisol and melatonin and the SSRI medications. And it really digs in deep to how cholesterol works and why statins do what they do and what negative effects come from it. So, and then the final section is how to help. And it goes into changing your nutrition habits, changing your do you have any hobbies, stuff like that.
Very cool. Very cool. And then where can people follow you? Any social media channels or anything like that?
We got a Facebook page. The New Start Health Center has a Facebook page, and I have a Twitter, Mozingo DC. I just started that. I don't know how to tweet very well. I don't know how people tweet so much, to be honest with you. I get on there like, how do they tweet so much? Like, I ain't got that much to say on Twitter, I don't think. I don't know, but yeah.
Or just, different time. I'm like, how do you have so much time?
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I try and fit in a few random things between clients and posts and everything. Yeah. So,
and at the New Start Solution website, you can sign up for an email chain, and that's where I get a lot of my information. And my YouTube channel that's starting soon will be stemmed through that too.
Cool, man. We'll link all that up in the show notes for sure.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So, all right, Dr. Mozingo, last question. Summing it all up, what do you believe is the truth that it takes to completely transform?
Make more good decisions than bad. That's the only advice I really give people. Don't try to be perfect, but make more good decisions than bad. If you have a bad day, have good 2 days after it, something like that.
Yeah. I like to always say, like, what's the best meal of the day? Your next meal. Like, just make the next one your best one you've ever had.
Absolutely.
Cool. Right on. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, man. It was a good talk.